G'day. In this video, I will take you through the process of saving bodies from your master part file into individual part files and then combined into an assembly. I'll also show the process used to create a simple drawing with dimensions for one of the parts. This is the final video in this mini-series. Make sure you've already seen videos 1, 2, and 3 linked in the descriptions below. Let's go. Hey guys, let's continue. So from this point where we've created our master part file, we're going to split the bodies out into separate parts. And there's two methods of doing this. And depending on the complexity of your product or your model, you may favor one of those over the other. I'm going to show you the cheap and shortcut way today because the assembly I need to create and this model here are not complicated. And in fact, the only two parts for this project that I need to export are the main body and the head with some artwork attached to them. I'm not expecting any errors or any major changes to this existing model that would flow on and potentially cause problems with parts that I've created down the line. So we're just going to keep it simple. All right. So first step that I'm going to do that's going to help is I'm going to rename a couple of the bodies. And in fact, before I do that, I do need to make a couple more changes. One of those is the tail. I need to change it so that it matches the original. And for that, we can go back to the master sketch, which is here. And if we look at our reference drawing, just going to go through the file that has that. Now here we can see there's a hole that is 5 mil diameter. And if we look at this part here, we can see there is a 5 mil sort of pin that's 17 long. It's actually, well, it's got a radius of 2.5 on the end, but it's a 4.8 by 4.8 part. So we're going to tweak it ever so slightly. 17 with a 2.5 radius means that it's 14.5 deep. So if we change this 8 to a 14.5, and the other thing we might, I think we'll keep it as is actually, the angle, because that's what the artist has changed here. So even though we're keeping it the same size, we might get it to stick out a little bit more like this. Looks pretty good. We're just changing the size of the actual part, so the factory's reusing the original. Okay, so I've just updated that master sketch. I'm going to come into this sweep here, and I'm going to change that feature to be 4.8, and then the dome I'm going to change to be, oh, this is already 2.5. Don't have to change it. Because we used the indent feature earlier, that hole's already done and updated. So super quick. So very happy with that. Now, so let's move on to the next part, which is now renaming a couple of the bodies in preparation for splitting out. Now, this step is only required in one of the two methods of splitting from a master file, which is the one I'm about to show you. So let's name them. Brown bear tail. We have, I'm not going to name the parts that I don't need, that I'm not too worried about. I'm going to name this one. I'm only going to do one of the feet, so I'm not worried about the other ones. Hide those. I'm going to hide that, and I hide those bodies. Here I've got the brown bear head and the brown bear body. Now the reason I've hidden those bodies is because those bodies are repeats. Repeat feet, repeat legs, neck, leg. Okay, so I've got 6 bodies that I'm going to continue with. I'm going to save. And now here's the toollet we're going to use. We go insert, features, save bodies. I'm going to click auto assign titles. And you can see it's naming those parts based on the body or the names that we've given to those bodies. Now let's just think for a second here. I'm going to, before I press save, I'm going to tweak those bodies slightly and those titles that I've given them to match the formatting I've done for my other files. So brown bear tail -01. That's my format. I'm going to paste that across all these so that we've got consistency. I very much like having consistent files. Makes things look neat. Makes it easier to find what you're looking for. Now the interesting one, and I'm going to put in here, body. There's going to be body 02. Head is going to remain as 01. Everything else remains the same. Now, the reason everything else remains 01 is because this is using the existing part this is using the existing part. We can assume these are the existing parts. We know the tail is only the body that's going to change. That's part of our brief from our client. We're just changing the body shape, and we're going to change the artwork that goes onto this head. All right, so now that we've got those parts named, let's go to Insert, Features, Save Bodies. We can see I can go Auto Assign. Those 6 are highlighted, and those 6 are the only ones highlighted or included because everything else is hidden. So those other ones remain in the file, but they're not going to be used when I do this Save Bodies feature. The other thing I'm going to try and do, which doesn't always work, is create an assembly at the same time. So my file name for the assembly will be 030 round bear 01. Now override default template settings. My parts are going to be the animals part. My assembly is going to be the animals assembly. And let's press OK, and let's see if this works. So what I'm hoping for here is for each of those bodies to be inserted into a new part file, linking back to this, but having just that body in that part file. And then for SolidWorks to combine those 6 parts into a new assembly file with the name that I've given it, everything would be fixed in position based on the positions that you can see in the master file. So I can see in my Windows Explorer just to the left that those files have been created. If I Control Tab, I can see now there is an assembly. I can see that each of those bodies has been split into a separate file. And if I open one of those bodies, like the actual main body, I can see what is in the feature tree. If we zoom in here, stock brown bear master robe one. And if I was to right click on that and go edit in context, it's going to take me back to the original file. So that would be a success. Now in my master file, you can see at the bottom here is a feature, Save Bodies 1. If I was to do anything, let's just explain what happens from here and how these files are linked. Everything that is above this Save Bodies 1 feature will impact and will carry down to the child parts, such as this, so long as they are above that feature. If I was to delete or suppress this feature, all those parts that I've created would disappear. And then the last thing to note is if I add a new, let's say I put a hole in this file, I put a hole here, and I did a cut through all, and I save this file, look at that body, nothing, no difference. If I move that cut above the Save Bodies feature, just hit Save, Control Tab, you can see that hole's now included. So this is where some people can get caught by using this method. Admittedly, I don't use it. I use the alternative most of the times, but it is a good skill and good knowledge, good feature to be aware of, to use in your work. All right, so with that done, we can now, I'm just going to copy some appearances across, and just copy the leg material as well. Go to my assembly, paste that onto that part and that part. And now I can go to the part file, save and close. I don't need that file anymore unless I was going to do other edits. And let's work on the assembly. Now, what I like to do is have everything fully defined. And I also like to have in a certain order that would make sense. In this case, I want to put my head at the top, have my head, body, and foot as the 3 wooden components at the top of the tree. And I'm going to simply make the origins to the origin. Now, you could keep everything fixed in place and the positions wouldn't change, but it's always best to have your elements fully defined, even if that's just a simple coincident made with the origins. So I'm going to save that file, and that's a bit annoying. Why has that happened? What's the appearances? Apply, save, and apply. One more. All right, now our legs. What can we do about our legs? Well, we have 2 legs here, which were done with a linear pattern. And we're not going to worry about using references. We're just going to use our memory and dimensions to get those legs in the right place. And then we're going to mirror those, okay, for a very quick result. All right, there is our bear, our assembly. And we are now very close. Well, we're now in a position to create the deliverables we need to for this project. Those deliverables are updated drawing or file for the body, and then an updated artwork file for the face painting on the head. So let's start with body, and we're just going to create a simple drawing for this. We're going to use some properties. We're going to give it some names because these carry through to our drawing. We're going to use description, category, product, brown bear, pad print, none of those applicable. Material is applicable, but only in the assembly. That it's going to be applicable in this file. What we're doing is we're going to be creating a drawing just like this one here. We're not worrying about the art on the bottom. We need to create this kind of drawing to show the dimensions. So let's go to make a drawing. It's going to be ML's part, and we're going to just start with a view layout of the bed from a front view. I'm going to get rid of that automatic center line. I'm going to change it to hidden lines, and then I'm going to do a projected view and another projected view, 3D corner. Now that one I will change, and that is not necessarily the angle I want it, so I'm going to tweak that again. And scale is 1:1. So in this file, my aim is to communicate the new shape of this part to the factory and identify to them that it is the brown bear and the body. Now let me update the material. Okay, so the information for the material, just going to put that in. Material, we have beechwood, and for the finish, there's an acrylic lacquer. Okay, and that's going to populate in our drawing. See here, we don't have an item number. It's fine. We do have now the remaining information to go. So very soon we'll do some dimensions. Let's just do a bottom view. Okay, so I've got a couple of 3D views. And now let's add some center marks and some center lines. I want these center marks to be on a format layer. I want them to be black. It's very interesting on the old drawing, the reference drawing, you can see they've done center lines on those holes, but they don't appear to line up. This one in particular, it's odd. I'd rather do the center lines and the dimensions you can see on this top view or the side view, and have dimension callouts, angle callouts. Now we're going to use, we'll do a center mark for that. But we're going to use the center lines, particularly on these sections here. That one's already in the middle. This neck hole, tail, legs, no point on that one. All right, so what dimensions do we need? We're going to look at the tire shape outside. We will do angle between the legs, and we're going to just simplify it down so that the factory can actually replicate it. All right, because the factory obviously can be 47, like plus or minus 2 or 3 degrees. It's not going to be a problem. I wouldn't expect it to be a problem. It'd be nice to get a center line through the middle of this, but I don't think that's going to happen. Probably have to do just a more construction line instead, like this, for construction. And then what I can do on this shape is put a few radiuses in. First, let's put a point in. So you can do a point between two lines to find the actual like end point of the radius, like that. Can't remember this. Sorry, I can't remember the correct term for it. Might be able to get it later. So here we're putting in a couple of radiuses. You can see the different shapes that make up this object. I always just try and move your dimensions around so they're clear to read. And then I want to find the center point there and the center point to this end. Nice. On this view at the bottom, I can do the full width, 56. I can do the depth of that cut as well. Now, does that tell enough information about positions? Not necessarily. I think what we can see on this drawing is here, they've got like the whole center point of the hole on that face. So we can replicate that. Just going to put a sketch point there, to dimension between. May not be perfect. I'm going to go to no, 0 for the clearance. So we've got 27 there. We could round this up as well. 45. Now, I think that should be enough information. Perhaps just the center point of the tail and the angle of the tail. That'll be enough. A little bit messy now, but all that information is there. Let's just put a couple of notes in. Right. Side, bottom, 3D views, and find a good place for those annotations. Just going to squeeze things up. Let's move this right up. Get a bit more space. And let's save. Save that. File is saved. And to print the drawing, to save it as a PDF, I use print, Adobe PDFs. Just always check the size scale is right. It's okay. All right, found a folder, name my PDF, save. You'll then see the preview come through. Yeah. All right, so that's the drawing done, and that'll wrap us up for this little series. Hey, thanks for watching the video all the way to the end. If you enjoyed it, please like and share. If you've got any suggestions for other content, leave it in the comments below. If you haven't already, please subscribe. And there's some other videos here. Check out. Thanks.